Hello, welcome to the TRBusiness July-August E-zine and the annual Top 10 Airport Operators Report. I'm delighted to be joined by Fraser Brown, who's the Retail Director at Heathrow Airport. Fraser, great to see you as always.
Hi.
Fraser, I'd like to begin by just asking you to briefly characterise, if you can, Heathrow's commercial landscape, as tough as it is at the moment with regards to shopping and F&B sales. But particularly since the 17th of May, when, of course, those new rules came in regarding the traffic light system.
Yeah. So clearly, over the last 15 months, Heathrow, like all airports and the travel sector more widely, has faced unprecedented challenges. We're now predicting, having had only a quarter of our normal traffic in 2020, kind of similar type of numbers in 2021. So it's a difficult landscape, and what airports, airlines, brands and retailers need is passengers, and we've just not had that in the number that we would normally do to make the businesses that we all work in viable. To address specifically your points, since the UK went into a national lockdown, as you said, in the 4th of Jan to the 17th of May, we actually did trade though. We had a number of our retailers, the way that the UK government rules were framed, that could still trade. So things like essentials, food and beverage, but also alcohol sales were allowed, which was slightly different from some of the earlier lockdowns. So working with the retail partners, which I want to thank them very much for, they worked really hard with us, with their colleagues, to make sure that they could safely reopen, because the important thing, I think, is although passenger numbers are low, Heathrow remains open for business. And that's an important distinction, I think, with regional airports, because Heathrow plays a unique role for the United Kingdom as the only hub airport, and not only for the smaller number of passengers that need to make essential journeys through that period, equally we remained open for cargo. Coming into COVID, Heathrow was the largest port in the United Kingdom by value. Might seem strange for many people familiar with the UK, images of large container ports in places like Felixstowe and Southampton. But actually, in terms of economic value, it was what was sitting in the belly hold of passenger aircraft that was critical to the UK's success as a trading nation. And particularly post-Brexit, we feel very clearly the responsibility as the UK's only hub airport to make sure that we stay open to serve that. And clearly last year, early in the pandemic, we were moving critical goods like PPE, ventilators and things like that. But now in recovery, what we're doing is helping exporters to get to markets. So we've stayed open. We're now up to about 15 to 20% of normal passenger volume, depending on the day. As I say, we're predicting our mid-range is about 22 million passengers for the rest of for 2021. And what we are seeing is people are eager to travel. Our own forecasts were that people would first wish to travel to reconnect with friends and family, and we're seeing that. But also they would want to have a leisure trip. Having been stuck, many people like me today doing this interview at home, people are eager to get a break away. And we see that as soon as the government's traffic light system that you refer to kicks in with countries on the green list, so that is no quarantine on return, people are booking those destinations. And we saw with the first major European market to do that, for the UK to put it on green, which was Portugal, we saw that the airlines reacted very quickly. And passenger demand for those routes was very, very high, very, very quickly. Now, unfortunately, in the second update, Portugal was removed. But actually, the most recent update, what we have seen is a significantly larger number of markets added to that green list, which we welcome from government. And we can see that markets in the Caribbean, Malta, the Balearics, and you can see demand going there. And some of our airlines are already planning for a significant larger number of flights to those destinations, and they see the bookings going up as well. So they may well be also upgauging the aircraft. Bringing it back down to retail, what we've seen over the period since the 17th of May is that the people who are travelling, irrespective of the traffic light system, the people who are travelling through the airport are spending. So very similarly to what I hear from colleagues who run retail businesses on the high street in the UK, although footfall, in our case passenger numbers, is lower, the penetration rate, the number of people who are coming into the stores percentage-wise is higher, and the spend from each passenger is also higher. And I think what we can see from that is there is this pent-up demand from consumers. Those who have been okay in terms of their employment through the pandemic have saved money. We know that from our banking partners. And there is a desire to treat themselves. There is a desire to spend some of that saved money. And of course, ourselves and our retailers at Heathrow are more than happy to help passengers to fulfill that desire as they come through the airport. And I think it's important, and we've worked on this with our colleagues across the airport, that we've made the environment safe. So I think in previous discussions I've had with yourselves, and I've said in these forums, it's so important. Aviation's got a great record on safety, whether that's aircraft safety or airport security. And what we're all needing to do now is layer on that kind of biosecurity to make our passengers and indeed our colleagues who work at the airport secure in the environment. So that's, you know, the clarity around hand sanitization, the clarity around the level of cleaning that we're doing, the mandatory wearing of face masks, and having things like COVID marshals to make sure that people are doing that. And what we're seeing is, having created that environment, passengers are feeling comfortable, they're sitting down to eat, and they are shopping. Now, we've only got 2 of our 4 terminals operational for departing passengers. Since I last spoke to TRB, we've remained open with Terminal 2 and Terminal 5 for passengers, but we've also had briefly Terminal 3 reopen for arriving passengers from direct flights from the UK government's red list countries, so places like India and Brazil. And that's because the UK government wanted us to completely segregate those direct flights from red countries, which we were more than happy to help government with. It allows them in their role managing the border to manage the immigration requirements of those passengers separately from the rest. And what we've done actually just this week is we've moved that facility across to Terminal 4. So standing here today in the first week in July, we've got Terminal 2 and 5 open for both departures and arrivals. Terminal 3 at the moment doesn't have passengers, and I'll come back to that in a second. But Terminal 4, we believe that for certainly the medium term, and I would say at least through the rest of this year, it will be a facility available for passengers and for airlines who are flying directly from red countries to arrive in and to be segregated away from the rest, so that we can deal with those passengers and their needs going through the border. So what we are... Sorry.
So just to interject very briefly, operationally, where is Heathrow at in terms of the percentage of retail units open across Terminals 2 and 5 at this stage?
So the vast majority of our retail business is open in Terminal 2 and Terminal 5. The concentration effect of only having passengers in the 2 terminals, although the passenger numbers are lower, they are all concentrated in 2 rather than 4 terminals. So that's made it economic both for us to continue to run the airport from a cost point of view, and it's made it economic for our retail partners to be able to operate. So the vast majority of the retail stores are open. There isn't quite as much of our food and beverage open, because obviously, particularly for our sit-down restaurants, consumers typically don't eat more than once. So when you have a smaller number of passengers, you would be diluting those small number of passengers across a number of outlets if you opened them all. So we have made sure that there is at least 1, if not 2, sit-down facilities available in both Terminal 2 and Terminal 5. But if I was to be able to walk you around Terminal 2 and Terminal 5 today, the vast majority of all the stores would be open. So you walking through the airport, you know, what we're trying to do is to deliver as near a normal passenger experience as we possibly can. So that's making sure that the security operation, albeit with hand sanitizers and masks and things, is normal, and that when you get into the departures lounge, the brands and the stores that you've wanted to see and you've come to love are open and available to you. Now, clearly we've had, as I think I've talked about before, sadly a number of business failures. So businesses such as Accessorize and Cath Kidston in the UK went into administration, and some of them have remained closed. Brands like Thomas Pink have chosen to stop trading, and those have had an impact. So we do have a small number of units which we're going through a transition period. But since I last spoke, I'm really proud of the work that the team has done, working with brands and retailers to have brands ready to come into those stores. What is stopping those stores opening, though, is the fragility of the outlook. And coming back to your question about the traffic light system, what we are asking government to do is to follow the science, and we believe that it's right that there should be more countries on that green list. And equally, we're encouraged by the government's, our own government in the UK's messaging around double vaccinated passengers being able to travel into the United Kingdom from an amber list country without having to quarantine. We would support that based on the science, and we would encourage government to move quickly, because as we sit here in early July, certainly schools in some parts of the UK, Scotland, for example, are already on holiday. Private schools will be breaking up very quickly, and it's only a couple of weeks until most state schools in England and Wales will be shut for the summer. There is still an opportunity for government to open up and to allow people to have a summer vacation, as well as I said before, connecting with friends and family. So we don't see the summer as lost. It is a fragile position, but the government has an opportunity to support the economy of travel, whether it be airports, airlines, travel agents, but equally as well, allowing people to come into the country. That will support inbound tourism as well, which is so important for many British-based businesses, hotels, restaurants and things like that. If you go into places like London, for example, footfall on Oxford Street, one of the main shopping streets in London, is down 60%. That is hurting businesses that you might say are domestic. Well, they're not. In big cities, and I'm sure it's the same in cities like Milan and Madrid and things, they rely on inbound tourism as well. Theatres, restaurants, bars, hotels, and of course shops. And they're really hurting from this. So we would encourage government to follow the science. And specifically, I would highlight the United States, both for leisure and visiting friends and family, and there's clearly a very close cultural link between the UK and the US, but also just for hard economics. Our own analysis says that every day that we are closed, that market is closed, then the people can't flow freely across the Atlantic, costs the UK economy £23 million per day in lost economic output. So this is not just about people not being able to go to Florida to see Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. This is real people, real lives and real jobs, and it's really important. So we were heartened when the G7 was held in the UK recently that President Biden and Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a commitment to look, as part of their Atlantic Treaty, at how they were going to reopen. And we continue to encourage government to keep pushing forward on that.
Okay, Fraser, I want to just circle back on the commercial mix. Obviously, there have been changes, as you mentioned. We've seen obviously some high-profile casualties, if you will. Dixon's Travel, notably from airport retail, and of course John Lewis and several others.
So we're really sad to see our good colleagues and long-standing partners in Dixon's, part of the Courage PC World Car Phone Group, make the decision that they did. We're not surprised. They said in their own statement, which they announced the decision to come out of travel retail as part of a financial update to the market, that a big part of that decision was the UK government's position on VAT post-Brexit. I completely understand and respect the decision that they've done, and it's exactly what we were telling government before they made this decision and put it into law, having announced it on the 11th of September last year. We said it would cost jobs. We said stores would close, and here is sadly an example of exactly what we said coming to pass.
Fraser, we're running out of time, but just final question from you. What can we expect from Heathrow in the coming months in terms of re-energising the commercial mix, new outlets, new shop units, particularly on the retail side?
So I'm not going to give you any too many state secrets, as it were, but I'm incredibly proud and pleased of what we've been able to do. So the businesses that have either decided to leave us or sadly went into some form of administration, we're very sorry for them and for the colleagues that have been impacted. But we are really excited, you're right, about what is coming. So, just to give you an example, the UK kind of swimwear brand Oliver Brown is coming to Heathrow for the very first time. So that's a brand that we've not had before, and they'll be opening a store shortly in Terminal 5. Since we last spoke, we've had food and beverage operator ARE, who operate down in Gatwick, opening their Big Smoke concept in Terminal 2. We've had a bookstore operated by W. Smith taking one of the Thomas Pink spaces, and we've had the rolling luggage business replaced by Case on a unit by unit basis. So we've seen lots of change already. We've seen retailers investing, even our existing retailers. W.H. Smith in the sometimes seen as boring essentials category have done a fabulous job. They've refitted through the lockdown in Jan to May all 3 of the airside stores in T5, and they look fabulous, and that's a great investment and a commitment from Smiths to travel retail and to Heathrow, for which we thank them. So when your viewers and readers come through Heathrow, and we hope they come through soon, they will see a lot of the same. They will see our great duty-free business, with more emphasis a little bit on alcohol now that duty-free is available to everyone in Europe. They'll see the great Harrods business, the iconic food and beverage that we've seen, but they will also start to see a little bit of freshness as well, whether it be, as I say, that Big Smoke in T2, new bookstore, refurbished W.H. Smith, Oliver Brown, and more to come. Sadly, I can't say any more than that at the moment, but I hope you can tell from my demeanour that we're not complacent about this, but we are very confident about the state of travel retail and the ability of Heathrow to recover from what has been a devastating impact of COVID on the industry.
I have just to pick up on the point about duty-free and obviously the restoration of liquor and tobacco sales as a big boost for the business, UK business, but despite obviously a vociferous campaign by the industry, including here at TRBusiness, and of course Heathrow's challenge through the courts to reverse the decision, we know that airside tax-free sales have ended on all goods apart from liquor and tobacco, as I said, at airports. Fraser, is the material effect of that decision on passenger spending being felt at this point, or is it too early to judge simply because of the traffic situation?
So I think it's a bit of both to your question. It is too early in the sense that the data sets are very small. So if you're a statistician, given that we were in a national lockdown from the 4th of Jan to the 17th of May, and most of those luxury stores, for example, were deemed non-essential and couldn't open, and we have relatively small passenger numbers, it's incredibly difficult to see really, really good quantitative data that a statistician would be able to look at consumer behaviour, elasticities, and all the good things that we all look at. However, all of the anecdotal evidence and the limited data that we have points in a negative direction in terms of the impact of this. All of our luxury retailers are telling us that consumers are concerned about VAT. They're asking those that are spending or seeking to plan to spend large quantities of money are aware of this decision, and it is concerning. On the flip side, and going back to what I said before, we haven't seen that in the numbers yet, because there has been this benefit of bounce back spend. And as I said at the start, spend per passenger, even in those categories, has been good. But it's a mixture of muddying of the waters, I would say. So we don't have clean data yet. What I would say, and like as you said, we're incredibly disappointed at the government's decision. I'm really proud of the role that we played with Do Free, Global Blue and a number of others in the industry, including yourselves, that we challenged government in a direct and respectful way. We obviously went further and then with Do Free and Global Blue took that through the court. And whilst we didn't win, the court did recognise a number of the points that we made. And certainly along with others, I continue on behalf of Heathrow to have a direct dialogue with colleagues in the Treasury, explaining the emerging data, reiterating what the impact we think this will have in the medium to long term, and continuing to try to lobby government to say what alternative ways can we do to get back to being competitive. Because this is not about us asking as an industry for a handout. This is us asking for a level playing field. What the government has done is squandered an opportunity post-Brexit to create or to continue to support a vibrant, economically viable, high employment, high quality sector. And what they've done at a stroke is made us 20% more expensive and therefore less competitive compared to some of our major markets around the world. I think that's wrong economically. I think they've made a mistake, and we will continue on behalf of Heathrow, our retailers, and importantly, the colleagues who work in those businesses to fight to get the law changed.
Thanks, Fraser. Just a final message from yourself on the outlook, the commercial outlook for Heathrow in the coming months and towards the end of the year.
So it's still very tough. You know, it all starts with passenger numbers, and for passenger numbers, those passengers need confidence that they can book and that they can travel relatively unhindered. The UK vaccination programme has been a great success. You know, we've got the vast majority of adults in the UK, not just single jab, but double jabbed. And we need to see government now taking that success and using that to open markets up again. If they do, then passengers will travel. We can see that pent up demand every time we get a market open. So we're optimistic. We're continuing to plan very, very carefully because clearly demand is not going to come back immediately. There will be markets that will be closed for quite a number of months, we think, where COVID has been particularly challenging and still is, and the UK government have put those markets onto the red list. But we see lots and lots of opportunity to bounce back. We see massive pent-up demand in that visiting friends and family and leisure. And unlike other commentators, we don't agree with the analysis that business travel is dead. You know, just a closing remark on that, you know, business travel will come back. The airlines are predicting that as well. Perhaps some internal business travel, the travel to meet colleagues within a business, may reduce permanently, and they may, having learned over the last 15 months to do video calling, that may stick. But there is so much demand. Remember, coming into COVID, we had 30 or 40 airlines queuing for slots at the airport. So we at Heathrow are in a very privileged position to have access to close proximity to London, a significant desire for people to come in and out of London as a gateway to London, the southeast, and more broadly to the UK. And therefore, we remain very, very confident. But it is tough right now. And I'd just like to close by thanking all of the colleagues at Heathrow, whether they directly work with me and my team, or they work with the retailers and the brands, because they've done amazingly in keeping us all safe, being incredibly flexible with the openings and the closings, as you said, with things like lockdowns. And I want to thank them all for what they've been doing, because it has been really tough. But when you look at a passenger going to a gate, having been through, it's really satisfying that as people are coming back, they're seeing Heathrow and the role that Heathrow retail and food and beverage plays in delivering the best airport service in the world.
A really optimistic message to finish on. Fraser Brown, thank you so much for speaking to TRBusiness for our report. Thank you.
Thank you.